Today in At Issue for Teens, young Muslims speak out. We're not all terrorists, you know.
Aside from on America's Most Wanted, we are not wanted here because my color and last name still spark fear.
That's At Issue today. Welcome to At Issue for Teens. I'm Kevin O'Keefe. Are you young and Muslim, tired of being told to go back where you came from, or that you're oppressed, or you oppress women? How about the only time you see yourself in the media is when you're a terrorist? Case in point, recently the trial for the Toronto 18 ended. They're a group of young Muslim men accused of plotting to blow up the Toronto Stock Exchange and create an Al-Qaeda cell in Canada. In the end, 11 were found guilty. Well, Patrick Hickey has been following how this story is impacting young Muslims in Canada. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thanks, Peter.
How have you found that the Toronto 18 has impacted Muslim teens in Canada?
Well, many of the Muslim youths I've talked to express the gambit of emotions, disappointment, anger, fear even, just like any of us would feel to that kind of plot. But one thing that really stuck out was just how little attention or care they even paid to this story.
Really? Was it a big deal for them?
No, because for them, they see it as just for what it is. It's just nothing representative of the Islamic community. These are just people who represent a very, very offshooted, even nutty, if you want to term it, look at what Islam is. And in fact, they likened it, many of them said, to would a neo-Nazi represent all Christians?
Right,
Of
so we
course
don't
not.
say Christian neo-Nazis, or we quickly say Islamic terrorists.
So it's a very laughable case to many Muslim youth.
Switching gears a bit, who have you lined up for us to talk to today on the show? There's a couple different people. Abdullah, for example. Who's Abdullah?
Abdullah is a young, up-and-coming filmmaker, playwright, author from Mississauga who does everything he can to dispel any sort of notions of an Islam that wants to be apart, because he celebrates integration with Canadian culture in his work.
And what about Neda?
Neda is a young lady who takes her faith and her principles and applies it to helping the whole community around her. And to her, she thinks that is really what Islam's about.
And Boonaa Mohammed, whose work I've seen online, who I actually love his stuff. Who's Boonaa?
An incredibly talented spoken word artist who has taken his experiences, his challenges, and his joys, even, of growing up as a Muslim in Canada and expressed them to us. And he's going to be here to tell us a little bit about that.
And joining me in the studio is Boonaa Mohammed. Welcome to the show, Boonaa.
Thank you very much for
You
having me.
started Green Card with something in Arabic. What did you say, and why did you say that?
I said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. Partly because it's like a little prayer, you know, like anytime we do something for the sake of Allah, anytime you do something and you'd like to receive blessings from it, you begin with the name of Allah. Like if I were to drink a cup of water, I would start saying Bismillah before I drink. So it's almost like, you know, to remember why and what you're doing it for.
In Green Card, you talk about people of Muslim religion occasionally being told, go back where you came from. There's this tone of being, go back where you came from. And I understand that you had a sort of a similar experience, almost crossing the border into Canada. Someone sort of said once, go back to where you came from. If you were to go back to where you came from, where would you go?
I would go to St. Joe's Hospital in downtown Toronto, because I was actually born here.
So why do you think, first of all, why are people saying that, do you think?
You know what, it doesn't just apply to Muslims, but I think because Muslims are a predominantly large immigrant community, I think we're feeling the butt end of it a lot more. But, you know, that attitude it's very unfortunate, because when you understand and contextualize Canadian history, right, we're all immigrants in one way or another, right? Unless you're of Aboriginal descent, you may have come on a boat. I came on a plane not too long ago, but we're all immigrants in one way or another. So it's really sad that people even have that attitude.
That's what I loved at the end of Green Card, where you say we should all go back to where we came from and let the natives have some fun.
It would be a very nice place.
Yeah. But why do you think that that tone is emerging in Canada? What's underneath that?
I think there is a bit of, you know, Islamophobia, a lot of fear. People are, you know, post 9/11, we're living in a very fear-mongering society where people have a lot of questions. They're not sure about a lot of things. And because of, you know, I mean, not to blame you, but media in general, right?
Yeah.
There is this perception of what Islam is and who Muslims are. I mean, mind you, we're almost 1/5 of the world's population. So to take the example of very few and then generalize it on the whole mass seems a little foolish, right? Yeah, it seems a little unnecessary. And because of that, you know, people are not the mass majority of Muslims are not accessible in the regular viewer's eyes. They don't get to see who the typical Muslims are. They don't see their butcher, their neighbor, their friend, their postman, their doctor, their engineer, just regular people like everyone else.
You say in Green Card as well, you talk about a young Muslim person being judge and jury, so telling his dad that everything's okay at school and telling his the teacher telling him things aren't so good at school. What experience is that? I guess you're sort of caught in between two cultures, two worlds at some point, school and your parents. I mean, how is that like for Muslim kids?
Well, again, like I said, I don't think it's just for Muslims, I think, but it is a large part of the immigrant experience where our parents may have certain standards and expectations from us, and we ourselves are in this country and we're kind of like, you know, you don't want to go to school, you hate school, but your parents value education because they had to fight so hard to get that chance. I know for my parents in particular, my dad never had the chance to continue his education. You know, he was in a war-torn situation where he was forced to flee his land, and because of that, he never got the chance to excel in school as he'd like to. So now when I'm in this country and I have the chance to go to high school and even continue to go to university, and I take it for complete granted, he's just like, come on, are you kidding me? Like, this is a dream, you know, that a lot of people live up on. And because of that, you know, our parents, they have these, you know, really high expectations for us because we're living out their dreams as well. And you're caught in the middle where, you know, sometimes, especially for a lot of young people, when there's a language barrier between your parents and you or your parents and the school, you know, you're able to kind of negotiate between the two, right? Your dad says, well, what does this mean? And your teacher's telling your dad something, but you're telling your dad something else, and your dad doesn't know who to believe. So it's a way we kind of con the system ourselves.
Why is it important for people not to believe that all Muslims are the same? We have this sort of monolithic, you said over 1 billion people in the world, 1/5 of the population. Why is it important to realize, I think it's easy for Christians to see the diversity within their own religion. Why is it important for them to see that in Islam?
I think it applies to any single group. For me to apply a label on everyone with red hair, if I said every person with red hair in this world is a serial killer, because maybe there were 3 or 4 red-headed serial killers around the world, I would seem like there was something wrong with me, right? So then for me to apply a similar label, right, for me to say, well, all people are, you know, hostile or they pose a threat because of such and such incident, it's just ignorant, you know? And I think, I personally, you know, I give Canadians and Americans and Westerners more credit than that. I don't think we're that slow. I don't think we have the understanding of, you know, that one represents all, right? I think we come to a place of understand that you can't stereotype. You can't, and the reality is, you know, we're not going anywhere. Like, I was born in Canada. I'm a Canadian, whether you like it or not. So for you to insist that I go back to where I'm from is foolish. Because, like I said, I was born here, so there's nowhere for me to go back to. I'm just like you.
Having said that, there are some commonalities, I think, that some Muslim students face in school and university, some unique challenges. What would some of those be?
I know for myself, you know, prayer space is always a big issue because as Muslims we are required to pray 5 times a day. Oftentimes you find that it does come down to almost compromising your school schedule with, you know, your prayer schedule. And it's unfortunate that many schools and institutions have not yet understood the importance of prayer in a Muslim's life and are not willing to accommodate students. And because of that, a lot of students are basically told to choose, right? It's like you either are missing my class without an excuse, because if I'm telling my teacher I have to pray, it's like, okay, go pray and come back, but, you know, just today.
And how do you think that's viewed, though, that you have to go pray? Especially in an educational environment where, you know, we have reason here, and this is religious is a little, you know.
Sometimes it's looked down upon. It's almost like, you know, you're enlightened, you're in a school setting.
Exactly,
you should be smarter than this. Oh, God's for those foolish people, right? You're one of the smart ones. And our schools, and many of our universities in particular, and especially high schools have it a lot worse. Students are not able to, you know, organize Jum'ah, which is like a Friday prayer, congregational prayer, which is mandatory upon us. And students are really kind of caught in the middle. They don't know what to do. They don't know, should I, you know, just go to class? Should I miss it? And the schools could be doing a lot more to help accommodate students and not place this additional burden on us.
Well, I guess that's my next question. If someone is watching right now who, let's start with someone who's Muslim, young kid watching right now, any advice you would give them?
Hold on to your religion, you know, and don't feel as though you have to compromise or don't feel as though you have to give up what is dear and valued to you, right? Because as Canadians, we have a right. this is what a lot of people don't understand. As Canadians, we have a right to freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and so many different views, even sometimes better than these Muslim countries, right? And in this country, we should have the right to pray, and we should have the right to express ourselves and dress in a manner that we feel is befitting for us, and not feel as though we're going to be held accountable because of that.
Any advice would you give for a non-Muslim person watching right now, a way that they could help better understand?
Just learn. I think the opportunity that you're giving me right now to at least explain a little bit about myself and my point of view is a beautiful thing. As Canadians, you don't have the excuse to be ignorant. You can't just pretend like, oh, I don't know where they are.
And I shouldn't feel I'm somehow being rude to ask you a question.
Ask,
like, why
please.
do you dress like this? Why do you pray like that? Why do you eat that?
Beautiful. I would love it if every single person, no, honestly, if every single person would come up to me and ask me honest questions, I think we would live in a much better world.
If someone wants to find out about your work, is there a website? How can they find out about some of your work?
Yes, you can definitely check me out. I'm online. I'm on Facebook like 99% of the world is. So you can just search my name, Boonaa Mohammed. I have a website, boonaa.com, and I'm on YouTube and Facebook and all those other mediums as well.
Well, thank you very much for coming today. I appreciate your time.
Me.
Well, when we return, Boonaa's poem, Beautiful, and a young Muslim woman says Islam isn't the problem, culture is. After this.